We're about to begin a brand new love journey. Comment where you're watching from so we can see that our Soul Stories family is all around the world. The night wind howled through the towering glass windows of the Whitmore Tower, where Marcus Whitmore's office overlooked New York City, glowing like an artificial galaxy. On his desk, the computer screen still flickered with dry numbers. Stocks, profit reports, ongoing deals. All of it testified to one fact. At 30, Marcus was already one of the youngest tech billionaires in Europe, the conqueror of the software industry, and the man who had acquired a string of startups. To the outside world, he was the tech prince of Britain, wealthy, cold, and never defeated. But in this moment, as the city lights flooded the room, Marcus felt a wrenching emptiness inside. Everything he owned, mansions, supercars, private jets, could not fill that void. He tightened his grip on the whiskey glass, feeling the burning heat slide down his throat. The echo of familiar high heels rang through his memory. Sophia Blake, his girlfriend, a radiant star on the red carpet, her face on dozens of magazine covers each month. Everyone admired them when they appeared together. Yet Marcus, whose eyes were trained to analyze every detail in business, had begun to notice the cracks. When he gave her a diamond necklace, her smile lit up, the cameras capturing the moment like a perfect painting. But on nights when he came home exhausted from grueling meetings, she was often absent, busy with events, parties, or simply vanished from his world. More than once, Marcus had tried to talk about his fears, about the loneliness of standing at the top, but Sophia's eyes always drifted away, distant and unfamiliar. Did she truly love him? That question gnawed at him more and more, until every time he looked into Sophia's glittering blue eyes, all he saw reflected back was an image. Marcus Whitmore, the billionaire, the fame, the power. Not Marcus, the flesh and blood man, with scars, weakness, and the fear of being abandoned. He braced his hands on the desk, his heart pounding as if he were about to face the riskiest deal of his life. The thought came suddenly but grew sharper. If he wanted the truth, he had to put Sophia to the test. The phone on his desk buzzed. A text from Sophia, Paris next week. A brand invited me to be the face of their new campaign. Come with me? Marcus stared at the screen for a long time. The invitation sounded sweet, but inside all he felt was pain. If he were to collapse tomorrow, would she cancel her flight to stay by his side? He set the glass down, pulled out his phone, and called an old friend, Henry Collins, his private doctor, and one of the few friends he still had from childhood. When Henry picked up, Marcus's voice was hoarse. Henry, I need your help with something crazy. 2 hours later, in the lavish penthouse, Henry looked at Marcus in disbelief. Are you out of your mind? You want to stage an accident? Pretend you're paralyzed? Marcus silently poured more whiskey, his gray eyes locked on the flames in the fireplace. If Sophia truly loves me, she'll stay, even if I'm no longer the powerful Marcus Whitmore. But if that love is built only on flashbulbs and money, then it will all collapse the moment I lose them. Marcus, Henry struggled to stay calm. This isn't a joke. You could destroy your life, and someone else's. But Marcus only closed his eyes, his sigh heavy. I've lived too long in lies, Henry. I need the truth, no matter how brutal. The room fell silent, the only sound the rain tapping against the window. Henry knew the stubbornness in his friend's eyes. Once Marcus decided, nothing could stop him. And this time, he wasn't gambling in business. He was betting his heart. As night gave way to dawn, Marcus stood at the window. The lights of New York still blazed, but to him they were nothing but a facade. He imagined Sophia's face when she heard the news. Horror? Pain? Or would she simply calculate her next career move? His hand clenched tight. The decision was made. Tomorrow the whole world would believe Marcus Whitmore had suffered a terrible accident and might never walk again. In the darkness, his lips pressed together as if he had just signed a contract with fate itself. A dangerous contract, with the price being his own heart. For the past 3 years, Lisa Hayes had almost blended into the marble walls and vast hallways of Whitmore Mansion. She was there every day, cleaning, setting tables, changing flowers, preparing meals. But to Marcus, her presence was no more than part of the luxurious backdrop around him. The crystal vases, the oil paintings, or the piano music flowing from the automated sound system. Lisa was 33, petite, with brown hair usually tied neatly at the nape of her neck. She didn't wear heavy makeup, just a touch of lip balm that brightened her face. What made people in the mansion remember her wasn't her looks, but the constant smile on her lips. A pure smile that could turn the cold kitchen into a warm place. "Lisa, I heard you singing while you were scrubbing the stairs today," a young maid once teased. Lisa just laughed and replied, "If I don't sing, scrubbing 100 steps would probably bore me to death." That cheerful spirit endeared her to everyone. But to Marcus, she was nothing more than a silent shadow. He had never paid attention, never remembered a single detail about her except the name on the staff roster. The day of the accident, the atmosphere of the mansion changed completely. Word spread quickly. Marcus Whitmore, the young billionaire, had miraculously survived a horrific car crash, but might be confined to a wheelchair for life. In the brightly lit kitchen, Lisa froze as the butler told the story. She collapsed into a chair, her flour-dusted hands trembling. For 3 years, she had watched her employer stride through hallways, descend staircases with determination, and move with powerful steps. The thought that those legs might never stand again made her chest tighten. The next morning, when Marcus returned home from the hospital for the first time in a gleaming wheelchair, the entire household seemed paralyzed. The staff exchanged worried glances, none daring to step forward. Only Lisa, still holding a silver tray, quietly approached. "Good morning, Mr. Whitmore." Her voice was gentle yet steady. "I've prepared breakfast. Would you like to have it in your room or on the balcony?" Marcus looked up, startled. In her eyes, he saw none of the pity he'd grown used to from outsiders. Instead, there was a simple, genuine smile, as if tragedy could never take away his dignity or strength. "In the room," he answered, his voice rough. Lisa gave a small nod and turned to leave. In that moment, Marcus realized that for the first time in days, his chest didn't feel weighed down like a stone. That breakfast arrived on a silver tray, sunny-side-up eggs, crisp warm toast, rich black coffee, and fresh orange juice. Everything was prepared meticulously, just as a five-star hotel chef would. But what caught Marcus's attention was a small, folded note tucked under the coffee cup. The slanted handwriting read, "The coffee might be a little bitter, but the new day doesn't have to be. Wishing you a good morning." Marcus's lips curved slightly. How long had it been since anyone had offered him such a simple wish? He watched Lisa tidy the room, her movements quick and practiced. Unlike Sophia, there was nothing performative in Lisa's gestures. When she wiped the table, she softly hummed an old tune in her clear voice. When she adjusted the pillows, she made sure to position them so his back could rest more comfortably. Natural, unforced. Marcus found himself unsettled. Why hadn't he ever noticed her before? This woman had lived under the same roof for 3 years, yet in his memory she was nothing but a vague blur. Now that blur was taking shape, brightening like a painting slowly filled with warm colors. That night, as the city outside pulsed with lights, Marcus sat in silence, staring at his unmoving legs in the wheelchair. But this time, his mind wasn't filled with images of Sophia on the red carpet, nor the roar of the press. Instead, he thought of Lisa's smile as she set down the coffee, of her soft humming echoing in the vast room. A strange feeling spread through him, both calming and unsettling. Calming, because for the first time, he didn't feel completely alone. Unsettling, because he feared, when this deception ended, she would disappear again, like the shadow she had been for 3 years. Marcus exhaled deeply, leaning back. In the dark, he told himself, "I just need a little more time, just a little longer, to truly understand the woman named Lisa Hayes." Late afternoon, the last rays of sunlight streamed through the enormous glass windows, casting a golden glow over the vast living room. Marcus sat motionless in his wheelchair, his thin hand gripping the armrest. The ticking of the wall clock pounded in his head, heavy, suffocating. Then came the sound of high heels echoing in the hall. Marcus looked up, his heart tightening. The door swung open. Sophia Blake appeared, radiant as if she had just stepped off a red carpet. A scarlet Dior dress clung to her figure, her blonde hair curled flawlessly, her face carefully painted without a single flaw. For a moment, Marcus felt like he was watching a movie scene. That woman was his girlfriend, the one the whole world believed loved him passionately. But as she walked closer, an uneasy premonition rose in his chest. "Marcus!" Sophia cried, her eyes widening, a hand pressed to her chest like an actress playing her role. "Oh God, I heard the news and couldn't believe it." "You? Really?" She stopped, her gaze flicking down to the wheelchair before dropping quickly. Marcus caught the hesitation instantly, brief as it was. For a businessman who had read hundreds of expressions in boardrooms, a fleeting pause was enough. "I'm fine," Marcus said softly, forcing calm into his voice. "It's just, it may take years to recover. Or maybe never." Sophia covered her mouth, her shoulders trembling. But Marcus could see clearly. In those blue eyes there were no tears, only the glittering light of an actress lost in her part. "My love, I'll be by your side." "Of course I will, but—" She licked her lips, her voice wavering. "You know next week is the premiere in New York. The contract is signed and I can't cancel. And after that, Fashion Week in Milan. I can't miss it, but I promise, whenever I can, I'll come back to see you." The words fell into the cold air like knives twisting into his chest. Marcus looked at her, a bitter smile tugging at the corner of his lips. The truth was plain. Sophia added a few vague promises. "Be strong, my love. You're my inspiration. I'll always think of you." Then her phone buzzed inside her purse. Sophia glanced at the screen, her eyes lighting up. "Sorry, the director's calling. I have to take this." She turned away, heels clattering against the marble hallway as she hurried out. Marcus sat frozen, his eyes following her retreating figure until it disappeared beyond the grand doors. Inside his chest, pain surged like a tide, but along with it spread a chilling clarity. The truth was undeniable. Sophia Blake had never loved Marcus Whitmore, the man of flesh and blood. She loved the aura around him, the prestige of the tech prince. When he could no longer stand tall, she vanished like the passing wind. Marcus clenched the armrest, his nails digging into the wood. He had anticipated this, yet the pain still clawed mercilessly. Enough. The charade could end now. There was no reason to live in falsehood any longer. He reached for his phone to call Henry, ready to end the plan. But just then, a soft knock sounded at the door. Lisa entered, carrying a shining silver tray. The warm aroma of freshly baked bread filled the room. She wore a simple apron, her hair neatly tied back, her cheeks flushed from a long day's work. "Mr. Whitmore, I brought you some bread and chamomile tea. You should eat something light before resting," she said, her voice warm and natural, without a trace of strain. Marcus looked up, surprised. After Sophia's coldness, Lisa's presence felt like a candle suddenly lit in a darkened room. "Put it here," he said quietly. Lisa gently set the tray on the table, then adjusted the pillow behind his back. The gesture was meticulous, practiced, yet filled with quiet care. She didn't bombard him with questions, didn't show pity. She simply did what was needed, her small smile steady. "Tomorrow the weather should be clear. If you'd like, I can wheel you into the garden. The fresh air will feel better," she said, her tone cheerful, as if offering something perfectly ordinary. Marcus stayed silent for a moment. In his chest, the anger and pain from Sophia slowly ebbed, replaced by something unfamiliar. Warmth, peace. He looked at Lisa, truly looked at her for the first time. This woman had lived in his house for 3 years, unnoticed by him. She always smiled, always gentle, like background music no one paid attention to. But now that melody rose clear and strong, filling the void Sophia had left behind. Marcus suddenly realized, if he ended the charade now, would he still see that smile directed at him? Or would Lisa fade back into the shadows, returning to her silent role as the invisible maid, never stepping into his world again? The thought made him hesitate. His finger, poised to dial Henry's number, froze in midair. In the stillness of the room, only Lisa's soft voice lingered. "You should eat while the bread is still warm." Marcus sighed, closing his eyes. He knew he had gone too far. But he also knew, tonight he couldn't end the game. Not because of Sophia, but because of another woman, the one he had just begun to notice after 3 years under the same roof. The woman is named Lisa Hayes. That morning, fragile sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft streaks across the room. Marcus sat silently in his wheelchair, his empty gaze drifting toward the misty garden outside. He was used to starting his days with dozens of phone calls, financial reports, and a packed schedule. Now everything was reduced to endless voids, filled only with heavy silence. The door creaked open. Lisa stepped in, carrying a polished silver tray. The aroma of hot coffee and crisp toast spread through the room, chasing away the cold that clung to the air. "Good morning, Mr. Whitmore," she said cheerfully, without a trace of effort. "I hope the coffee is strong enough today, since it looked like you had trouble sleeping last night." Marcus glanced at her, faintly surprised. Not many dared to speak to him in such a calm, natural tone. Most people were timid, or else dripping with false sweetness. But Lisa was simply Lisa. She set the tray down and poured the coffee into a cup with a graceful motion. Steam rose, curling fragile spirals into the air. "Would you like me to read the morning paper?" Lisa asked, then smiled and shook her head before he could answer. "Actually, I think it's better if I tell you a joke." "The news is nothing but depressing." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A joke?" "Yes," she said with certainty, standing straight like she was about to perform. "A man asked his doctor, 'Doctor, every morning I wake up feeling like an alarm clock.' The doctor looks puzzled and asks, 'What do you mean?' The man replies, 'Because I just keep ringing and ringing.'" Lisa finished the punchline and immediately burst into giggles herself. Her bright laughter echoed through the vast room, like a cool breeze rushing in. Marcus froze for a second. Then his lips curved. A hoarse, awkward sound escaped him, but it was laughter nonetheless, the first since the accident. Lisa's eyes widened. "Did you just laugh?" "Maybe." Marcus nodded lightly, his gaze softening. "Not bad." "See?" Lisa clapped her hands like she had just won a victory. "I knew I was good at telling jokes." The atmosphere in the room shifted. The heaviness and gloom dissolved, replaced by a gentle warmth. Marcus was astonished. How could a few casual words from a maid lighten his world so much? As he ate, Lisa settled into a nearby chair, her voice soft but lively. "I remember the day my younger brother had heart surgery. Lucas was only 16, so young. The doctor said the chances of success were only 50%. I sat waiting in the hallway, but instead of crying, I sang. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I figured, if he didn't make it, at least the last gift I gave him was my song, not my tears." Marcus stopped chewing and looked up at her. In Lisa's eyes, there was no self-pity, only gentle light. "The surgery worked. Lucas lived, and now he's studying medicine. He dreams of becoming a cardiologist." Lisa smiled, her eyes sparkling with hope. "And you've stayed this optimistic?" Marcus asked, his voice low. "Why not?" Lisa shrugged. "We don't know what tomorrow will bring. So why waste today on sadness?" The answer was simple, but to Marcus, it cut straight through the ice around his heart. He had always believed happiness came from great victories, stock numbers, and signed contracts. But Lisa, this woman, saw happiness as natural as breathing, found in every smile, every day her brother survived. He sat in silence, the coffee in his hand suddenly tasting strangely sweet. In his head, her words echoed, "Why not?" When breakfast ended, Lisa rose to clear the dishes. Marcus watched her small figure as an unfamiliar feeling swelled in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt the house wasn't completely empty. Lisa's laughter still lingered somewhere, weaving into every cold corner he had grown used to. He realized suddenly he didn't want to lose that sound. In the pale morning light, Marcus Whitmore, the cold, proud billionaire, found himself smiling. Just a small smile, but enough to signal that his heart was beginning to thaw, though he himself hadn't yet realized it. The next morning, Marcus opened his eyes before sunrise. The gray haze hadn't yet touched the curtains, but his head was already full of a single thought. "I have to tell the truth." He reached for the phone on his nightstand. The message to Henry had been drafted since midnight. End the plan. I'll confess his finger hovered over the send button, his whole body taut as if ready to leap off a cliff. Just one tap, and everything would change. The bedroom door opened softly. The smell of toast and warm coffee drifted in. Lisa entered, her hair neatly tied, carrying a silver tray in both hands. Her smile arrived before her greeting, simple but radiant. Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. Today let's try Welsh orange marmalade. Don't worry, it's not as bitter as yesterday's. She stuck her tongue out playfully, her eyes sparkling. The draft message on Marcus's phone blinked with a tiny green dot. He locked the screen. All right, he rasped. Bring me whatever you think is best. Lisa set the tray down and adjusted his pillow. Her touch was so natural that he had to look away. That warmth, care without pretense, melted his chest like wax. This afternoon the weather will clear, Lisa said. If you'd like, I'll take you to the glass garden. The jasmine there just bloomed. It smells wonderful. Okay. Marcus heard his own reply come too quickly. The word burst out like a reflex, clutching at something slipping away. He looked at Lisa's profile, and a sharp thought sliced through him. If I tell the truth, will that smile still be for me? That afternoon, the conservatory glistened green. Sunlight spread across the stone floor, and sparrows darted past the glass ceiling, vanishing into the foliage. Lisa pushed the chair gently between the herb beds, occasionally plucking a mint leaf and placing it in his palm. Smell this! She lifted his hand toward his face. Fresh mint. One sniff and worries disappear like bubbles. Marcus bent down, inhaled, and the cool sting rushed straight to his mind. He chuckled softly. What about boardroom troubles? 2 leaves, Lisa said solemnly, handing him another, and 1 cup of tea. He looked at her and smiled. A calming smile, the kind he hadn't believed himself capable of anymore. The piece was as fragile as paper, but more real than any signed report. Lisa, he said, his throat suddenly dry, I have something to tell you. Yes? She stopped, tilting her head, waiting. This was the moment. Marcus felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. He pictured himself standing, wheeling the chair aside, confessing, apologizing. A part of him unlocked, ready to sprint toward freedom. But then another image intruded, Lisa blinking, her smile fading, offering only a polite nod as the wall between employer and servant rose again, hard as stone. It's nothing, he closed quickly. Just thank you for the marmalade. It's very good. Lisa studied him for a second, then smiled and pushed the chair forward. I'll make more. Tomorrow we'll have it with jasmine tea. Marcus loathed himself. Inside, something snapped, a faint sound like a spring breaking. That evening, Henry called. You drafted the message and then deleted it. His voice was firm. Stop tormenting me, Marcus. End this. Marcus paced the room, something he wasn't supposed to do, then dropped back into the wheelchair when he heard movement in the hall. I will, he whispered. I just need a few more days. A few days for what? Henry's tone sharpened. To prolong a mistake? You already got your answer from Sophia. Everything after that is you running from yourself. Marcus said nothing. On the other end, Henry sighed. I know you're scared, but the truth doesn't hurt any less just because you fear it. I'm not just afraid of pain. Marcus stared at the empty air, his voice sinking. I'm afraid of losing the one thing that still makes me feel human. When Lisa smiles, I'm not the tech prince. I'm just Marcus. If I stand up, maybe that smile will step back, behind the line. Henry was silent for a beat. You can't keep someone locked in a dark room just because their gaze makes you feel warm. I know. Marcus closed his eyes. Give me 2 more days. Marcus, I promise. The call ended. The promise was as light as a spider's thread, but even a spider's thread can hold a drop of dew. The next day, Lisa brought him to the library. The room was filled with books, their scent a blend of old wood and warm paper. She chose a poetry volume and sat in a low chair beside him. Which one would you like to hear? I have a favorite. It's about ordinary things that are anything but ordinary. Read it, Marcus said, his voice softening without him realizing. Lisa read without theatrics, as though each line opened a little courtyard, creeping vines, a wooden chair, noontime sun. Marcus leaned back, listening to her voice rise and fall, flowing like water over stone. He thought of how many years had passed since he had heard a human voice that wasn't delivering numbers in a negotiation. "What do you think?" Lisa closed the book, eyes on him expectantly. "I feel—" Marcus searched for the word lighter. "Hmm," Lisa smiled. "That's what poetry is. A ladder for the days you can't climb on your own." He turned away, hiding a smile. "It's not that I can't tell the truth," he thought. "It's that I'm not ready to lose this." Late that night, Lisa stopped by before leaving. "It's going to rain tomorrow," she said. "If you get restless, I'll bring up my guitar and sing a few songs. I promise not to torture you. I'll pick something pleasant." "Bring it," Marcus replied. If I get too foolish, remind me." "Remind you of what?" "Remind me that tomorrow still exists." Lisa tilted her head, her eyes softening. "Tomorrow still exists. That's the best news we get every morning." The door closed. The room returned to the tick of the clock and the shadows. Marcus stared at his phone. The message, "End the plan," still sat in drafts, a confession without a voice. He wondered, where did her kindness come from? From pity for a man who couldn't walk? Or from something deeper? He wanted to believe it was deeper. But what if it wasn't? If he stood up, what would remain? A cruel thought flickered. Hold on just a little longer to test it. He shivered. That word, test, had dragged him into darkness from the start. He couldn't bear turning Lisa into another experiment, but he also couldn't bear losing her at once. He put the phone away and blew out the lamp. In the wavering dark, he heard his own breath, heavy as wet wood. Very softly, as if to the emptiness, he murmured, "I'm sorry, Lisa. Give me one more day." The next morning, when Lisa entered with a guitar slung over her shoulder, it felt as if the room had gained another window. She sat on the carpet's edge and strummed a simple chord. The tune was clumsy, but the honesty in its sound stung Marcus's nose with tears. He couldn't even remember the last time someone sat at his feet and sang, perhaps back when he was a boy in Manchester, in their cramped flat, his mother ruffling his hair after a failed exam. "What do you want to hear?" Lisa asked, her wide eyes on him. "Whatever you like." "Dangerous answer," she laughed, "because I have exactly 3 songs." The guitar hummed. She sang of a bumpy road lined with wildflowers, of a patched-up home that was still warm, of a torn heart that still knew how to laugh. Each lyric moved through Marcus's chest like a hand resting on a wound, not healing it, just holding it still. When the song ended, Lisa looked up. "You all right?" Marcus nodded. "Better than I expected." "Good," she said, standing and dusting off her skirt, "because today I have a big plan. Apple pie. And try not to burn down the kitchen." She walked toward the door, humming the tune again. Marcus watched her go, a sliver of sunlight catching the tips of her hair. At that moment, he knew one thing for certain. The lie was no longer about testing anyone's love. It was only a clumsy fortress he'd built round a fragile flame. The flame called Lisa, because he was terrified life's winds would blow it out. He knew all fortresses eventually collapse, and when they did, they could crush the very thing they were meant to protect. But that afternoon, with Jasmine lingering in the air and the guitar's echo still trembling, Marcus, with all his pride and all his fear, chose to delay the truth for one more day. Tomorrow, he told himself. Tomorrow. New York's night was unusually quiet. Outside the window, mist clung to the street lamps, their glow spreading into faint halos. Inside the vast room, the fireplace burned, shadows of crackling logs dancing restlessly on the walls. Marcus lay back on a long chair, an open book resting on his lap, though his eyes couldn't manage to read a single line. Lisa's voice floated softly into the stillness, warm as water seeping into long fissured stone. "Let us go together when the day ends and the darkness falls." She was reading Yeats, her voice both low and clear. Sometimes she would pause to explain a passage in simple, playful language that made him laugh. The sleepless nights Marcus once filled with the ticking of clocks and the howl of wind through glass were now filled with her voice. "You don't get tired of reading to me all the time, do you?" he asked once, when she paused to turn a page. Lisa smiled, her eyes still on the book. I once sat by my brother's bed for months, reading children's books chapter after chapter until I knew them by heart. I learned that sometimes it's not the story that matters, but simply a voice. Proof you're not alone. Marcus said nothing, but something hot spread through his chest, like embers suddenly catching flame. Some nights Lisa didn't read. She simply sat there in the chair by the window, listening while he spoke. At first, Marcus had been reserved, but then, like a dam cracking, everything he had buried began to pour out. I hate the silence in this house, he confessed. It feels like an unsigned contract hanging there, threatening everything. Every time I walk in, I feel nothing but emptiness. Lisa didn't interrupt, just nodded, her gaze gentle. And there's something else, his voice rasped. I'm afraid of being alone. Standing in the middle of 100 people at a party and still knowing I'm the only one there. Worst of all, no one knows I'm afraid. All they ever see is Marcus, strong, invincible. Lisa rested her chin on her knees, her voice soft but steady. I'm afraid too, but my fear is different. I'm afraid of being lied to. I've seen people say, I love you, and then turn away in an instant. I hate the feeling of being the fool who believed in something that wasn't real. Marcus's fingers dug into the armrest of his wheelchair. Every word she spoke cut into the secret wound he carried. He was lying to this very woman. Day by day, they shared more with each other. Lisa told him about her childhood in Wales, afternoons cutting grass with her brother, or the times she scrubbed floors while singing, just to forget how tired she was. She laughed often, her optimism so infectious it turned hard memories into cheerful anecdotes. Marcus listened, and for the first time realized, beyond the dazzling world he had pursued, there was another world, simple, warm. In that world, value wasn't measured in stocks or mansions, but in love and small smiles. One evening, as Lisa gently adjusted his blanket, Marcus suddenly reached for her wrist. Her small, warm hand rested in his palm. She froze for a moment, but didn't pull away. Their eyes met. In that instant, Marcus knew what he had been denying all along. He loved Lisa, not the wild, reckless blaze he had once mistaken for love with Sophia, but something quieter, deeper, spreading slowly into every corner of his heart. A love that made him feel less alone, that kept the darkness at bay. But the deeper his love grew, the stronger another fear rose, the lie. He had pretended to be paralyzed to test Sophia, but with Lisa, that lie had become shackles. With every smile she offered, every look of trust she gave, his heart tightened with guilt. At night he lay awake, listening to the wind howl through the long hallways. If Lisa knew, would she still sit here, reading to him? Or would she quietly leave, abandoning him to this cold house once more? The fear was so great he didn't dare imagine it. He kept telling himself, just one more day until he could find a way to be sure she wouldn't walk away. But his delays only weighed his heart down further. He loved Lisa, yet every time he saw her trusting smile, he felt like a traitor. One late night, when Lisa stood to wish him a soft, good night and turned out the lamp, Marcus lay in the dark, his heart hammering like a drum. He knew he couldn't drag it out forever, because with each passing day, Lisa became the only light in his world. And if that light were ever snuffed out by his deceit, the darkness left behind would be unbearable. He shut his eyes and whispered into the emptiness, Lisa, if you leave, I'll be nothing at all. Marcus had never felt his heart so heavy. In the past days, Lisa's smile and tenderness had been like medicine, soothing the pain of loneliness inside him. But the closer they grew, the more he felt every moment with her shadowed by one terrible truth. He had deceived her. That night, the room glowed in the golden light of a desk lamp. Lisa sat in the chair beside his bed, holding a book, her voice steady as a gentle tide. But Marcus couldn't hear a single word. All he could hear was his own heartbeat, pounding fast and heavy like a hammer. Enough. He couldn't go on like this. He drew a deep breath and spoke softly. Lisa? His voice was low, hoarse, cutting through the words she had just read. Lisa looked up, slightly surprised. Yes? Marcus braced his hands, sweat dampening his face. Though the room was cool, he swallowed hard, every nerve pulled taut as if ready to snap. There's something I have to tell you. He paused, then met her eyes directly. I was never paralyzed. The book slipped from her hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Lisa froze, eyes wide in disbelief. Marcus bowed his head, his voice breaking. It was all a plan. At first I wanted to test Sophia, and when she left me I meant to end the lie. But then, you walked in. You cared for me, stayed by me. And I was afraid, Lisa. Afraid that if I stood up, you would disappear again, back into the shadow you had been for 3 years. I didn't want to lose you. He covered his face with his hands, his voice raw. I'm sorry. I deceived you. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. If you hate me, I'll accept it. Just please, please don't vanish from my life. The room fell silent. Marcus heard the blood pounding in his ears, as if the whole world had stopped, waiting for judgment. Then suddenly Lisa burst into tears. Tears streamed down her face, but they were not tears of anger. She pressed a hand over her mouth, sobbing. You're not really paralyzed? You're healthy? Oh God, that's the most wonderful thing. Marcus's head shot up, stunned. You're not angry with me? Lisa laughed through her tears, her voice trembling. You fool, Marcus. Why would I be angry that you're whole? I prayed every night for you to overcome your pain, and now you tell me it was all pretend, meaning you were never truly hurt. What more could I possibly want? Marcus stared at her, astonished, his heart tightening and then bursting wide open. He couldn't stop himself. He reached out and took her small hand in his. Lisa, you truly forgive me, even though I lied to you? Lisa nodded firmly, tears still falling, but her eyes shining bright. Yes, you were wrong, but what I saw in your eyes, it wasn't malice, it was fear. You didn't want to be abandoned again. I know that feeling. I once feared betrayal, feared love was only a game. But now, seeing you trembling like this, I know you're sincere. Marcus couldn't hold back any longer. He pulled Lisa into his arms. She sank down beside him, letting him cling to her as if letting go would make her disappear. In that moment, every wall of deception, every mask of power collapsed. What remained was simply Marcus, a flawed man, desperate to be loved. Lisa buried her face against his shoulder and whispered, From now on, don't hide from me anymore. Let me walk with you through every fear. I don't want to be an outsider to your world. I want to be the one beside you, whether rich or poor, standing tall or falling down. Marcus closed his eyes, a hot tear rolling down his cheek. I promise, Lisa. No more secrets. You are the only light, and I'll never let it go out. Outside, the night wind brushed through the trees, leaves rustling like a quiet symphony. Inside the room, the two sat pressed close, their hearts beating in unison. From that moment on, they both knew a new love had begun, not built on glamour or lies, but on truth, forgiveness, and the longing to walk together to the end of the road. Soul Stories fam, if you're watching on another channel, come home to us at Soul Stories, where tens of thousands are listening and sharing together. The first morning after his confession, Marcus woke to the sound of sparrows perched on the window ledge. He lay still, listening to the house breathe, a warm, gentle breath, no longer echoing with the emptiness of his long, lonely days. The scent of butter and cinnamon drifted up from the kitchen. He smiled. Lisa was baking. He pulled on a light sweater and padded barefoot down the stairs. Each wooden step creaked beneath him like notes welcoming the day. At the end of the hall, Lisa stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, a curl brushing her cheek. She was trying to slide a piece of dough into the pan without splattering oil. A mission clearly doomed, as shiny spots already dotted her apron. A delicious little crime scene, Marcus said, leaning against the doorframe. Lisa spun around, startled. You're up already? Ruined. I was going to bring it to you in bed. No need, he said, stepping forward to steady the pan. If you stay this close, the chance of the kitchen catching fire is about 80%. She raised a brow. Then you do it, Mr. Tech Prince. Show me how your anti-stick algorithm works. They switched places. Marcus tilted his wrist, letting the dough slide around in the hot butter. The sizzling sounded like rain on a roof. Lisa stood close, watching the pan like a child. When the pancake puffed up, golden and even, she gasped softly, then burst out laughing. A streak of flour dusted Marcus's nose. No one knew when it had landed there. Hold still. Lisa stretched on her toes and brushed it away with her fingertip, a touch so light Marcus's heart stumbled a beat. Family, he thought. Maybe happiness was simply this, a flour-dusted morning and shared laughter. They began a new routine, breakfast at the small table by the window instead of the 14-seat dining table meant for banquets. Whenever Marcus instinctively reached for his phone, Lisa tapped her spoon on her glass. Breakfast rules, no stocks, no emails, only marmalade. He laughed and surrendered. Market reports could wait, but not the smile across from him, the sunlight glimmering in her brown eyes. After breakfast came walks in the conservatory. Marcus carried pruning shears and Lisa wore an old straw hat. They talked about everything. The novel she was reading, the bizarre bugs he once fixed at midnight, Lucas's grumpy texts from medical rotations. When they grew tired, they sat on the wooden bench by the jasmine trellis, splitting an apple. Sometimes they said nothing at all, just listened to leaves brushing like whispers. The silence was no longer frightening. It was full in its own gentle way. At noon, Marcus began learning to cook. A man who once relied on chefs now felt nervous over frying a single egg just right. The first time he cracked too early, the yolk spilled out. Lisa gasped. He sighed, ready to toss it. She snatched the spatula. No, look, avant-garde eggs. Not perfect, but adorable. They set the odd plate on the table, snapped a photo, and stuck it on the fridge with a magnet spelling FAM. Lisa promised the rest of the letters. I love you would appear as his skills improved. In the afternoons, the vast library turned into a game room. Lisa invented a treasure hunt of notes hidden around the house, each with a riddle or a memory she wanted Marcus to keep. What's behind the portrait of the woman in the green hat? He flipped it to find. The moment you truly saw me. He froze, smiling widely. Another note in the piano bench. The song you owe me. He sat and played a few clumsy chords, laughing. Yes, a debt and one he would repay. By evening, they cooked dinner together. Marcus wielded the knife with more force than finesse. Lisa shredded vegetables with an artist's touch. She turned on the old radio, jazz swelling through the kitchen. They spun with the rhythm, shoes tapping the floor. Some nights they ate right there at the counter, passing spoons of sauce to each other so they could taste. Flames flickered in the oven, and, Marcus thought, in his chest. Marcus's change went beyond small habits. The rhythm of his entire day shifted. The need to control everything, armor he had worn since 20, began to loosen. When his assistant sent a crammed meeting schedule, he marked a green box. Quiet time. Lisa noticed, said nothing, and only placed a hot cup of tea in his hand. He didn't know when it had begun, but tea had become a ritual, a key opening the door out of the trenches. He started exploring rooms he had once ignored. In the laundry room, Lisa installed a small drying rack. In the music room, he bought a second-hand guitar, its scratched wood carrying a voice warm as a storyteller's. In the living room, he removed 3 chandeliers and replaced them with simple floor lamps. The mansion shed its need to prove itself to the world. Marcus also changed with the staff. He went to the kitchen and apologized to the butler for the days he had made everyone anxious with his rigid schedules and absurd evening silence rules. The butler stammered, "It's all right, sir." Marcus nodded. "I know, but all right isn't the same as, well. From now on, Friday nights you go home early. Saturday lunch? I'll cook somewhere in the back." Someone laughed aloud. Lisa stood by the wall watching quietly. He was learning how to live honestly. One rainy evening, they sat under the porch. Lisa wrapped a blanket around them both, handing Marcus a porcelain mug with a fox painted on it. "From Lucas," she explained. "He said foxes are clever but like to pretend to be fools. I told him you kind of fit the description." Marcus chuckled. "I'll take it. But if I'm a fox who can cook eggs." "Flower-nosed fox," Lisa corrected, glancing at his nose. In the rain's hush, Marcus told her about his mother, The woman who had taught him to live simply in a cramped Manchester flat. He had never spoken of her to anyone in this house. The day she died, he had promised himself he would become the man no one could hurt. That promise had turned him into a wall. Looking at Lisa now, he realized a wall kept the rain out, but also shut the sun away. "You remind me of the smell of her apple pies," he said, his voice rough. "Then tomorrow we'll bake apple pie," Lisa answered without hesitation. "And if it burns, we'll call it the flavor of memory." They laughed, leaning against each other. In that moment, Marcus knew he had opened a door he'd long kept locked. Family was no longer a distant luxury. It was a blanket, a fox-painted mug, the scent of butter a little too scorched but unforgettable. Sometimes amid the quiet joys, Marcus still felt a taut string inside, memories of his lie, of the path behind them. But he no longer ran from it. He told Lisa about the days he stayed silent out of fear. She didn't preach, didn't judge. She simply held his hand and said, "When we're afraid, we do clumsy things. What matters is knowing when to stop and choosing to go on with honesty." He nodded. "Go on." Two simple words, but they felt like absolution. Late at night, instead of checking emails one last time, Marcus wrote tiny notes to answer Lisa's treasure hunt. Behind the portrait of the woman in the green hat, he tucked a promise to look at you every day as if it's the first time. In the piano bench, the song I owe you. He added, "I'll learn. Slowly, but I won't stop." Before bed, Lisa left a slim envelope on his desk. No address, no stamp. Inside were 4 letters cut from magazines, spelling family. The missing pieces had finally arrived. Marcus smiled, his eyes stinging. He pinned them to the fridge, the streak of flour still lingering on his nose from that morning. "Leave it," Lisa said when he reached to wipe it. "It's a symbol." "A symbol of what?" "Of a man learning not to be perfect." Marcus wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "And of the woman teaching him that." The house, once a fortress of silent nights, was now alive with small sounds. Spoons clinking against porcelain, leaves rustling, off-key guitar notes, 2 people whispering apologies, then laughing. For the first time, Marcus no longer felt he lived in a glass tower, but in a home with a beating heart. Outside, New York still spun with schedules, red carpets, flashing lights. Here, amid warm kitchens and the scent of apple pie, Marcus was learning to speak ordinary words. "Have you eaten?" "Let me wash the dishes." "Don't push yourself today, and I'm here." He didn't know what storm waited on the horizon, but right now, in a house no longer cold, he believed happiness wasn't a peak to climb. It was a road 2 people walked quietly, hand in hand, through butter, rain, and little notes that promised to be kept. News that Marcus Whitmore had appeared in public on his own 2 strong legs spread like wildfire. Some newspapers even ran bold headlines. "Tech Prince miraculously recovers after accident." To the public, it was a blessing. But to Sophia Blake, it was an unforgivable humiliation. She remembered every phone call, every interview where she had pretended to be heartbroken while describing the unfortunate man she would stay with for life. She remembered the moment she left the mansion, feeling relieved at being freed from the burden of a crippled man. And now, Marcus was healthy, radiant, and walking beside another woman, Lisa Hayes, an unknown maid. Sophia felt her blood boil, betrayed, shamed, and worst of all, replaced. That afternoon, the grand doors of Whitmore Mansion flew open. Sophia stormed inside, her high heels striking the marble floor sharply. Marcus was in the living room, laughing with Lisa. The sound of his laughter cut off instantly when they saw her. "Marcus!" Sophia cried, her voice breaking like snapped strings. Her blue eyes shimmered with staged tears, her steps trembling toward him. You're standing again?" "Oh God, I didn't know. Why would you hide this from me?" Marcus looked at her, his gaze cold. He could have predicted this reaction, the perfect performance of regret from a star who had lived under flashing lights her whole life. "It's over, Sophia," he said quietly but firmly. Sophia flinched, clutching his hand, her voice trembling. "No, don't say that." "I was wrong, Marcus. I was afraid. Too weak to stand by you when you were in a wheelchair. But I love you. Truly love you. Please give me another chance." Tears streaked down her flawless makeup. The scene made Lisa hesitate, stepping quietly back to give them space. But Marcus's eyes did not waver. He gently freed his hand, his gaze shifting toward Lisa, as if to declare, "The woman I choose is not you." Sophia saw it, and in that instant, a bitter smile curved her lips. Later that evening, Marcus left to meet Henry. Lisa stayed behind, tidying the dining room when Sophia suddenly reappeared, leaning against the doorframe. Her gaze gleamed, very different from before. "Lisa, isn't it?" Sophia's voice was honey-sweet. "I need to tell you something, since clearly you're taking my place in Marcus's life." Lisa clenched the cloth in her hands, steady. "If you have something to say it plainly." Sophia stepped forward, her heels punctuating each word. "You think Marcus is serious about you? Don't be so naive. He once spoiled me like a princess. Cars, diamonds, trips anywhere in the world. When I smiled, he would do anything to please me." She paused, a sharp smile on her lips. "And when he grew bored, he staged an accident just to cast me aside. You think you're different? No, Lisa, you're just the new game. When Marcus wants, he'll give you the world. And when he doesn't, he'll find an even crueler way to leave you." Lisa froze. The words pierced her heart like knives. She wanted to protest, that Marcus wasn't that man anymore, that she had seen him tremble as he confessed, had heard his apology from the depths of his soul. But deep inside, another voice whispered, "What if Sophia is right? What if this love is just another performance? And when he tires of it, I'll be the one left behind?" Sophia stepped closer, lowering her voice at Lisa's ear. "Believe me, he'll never change. And when it ends, your pain will be 100 times worse than mine, because you trusted him more than I ever did." Lisa's nails dug into her palms. She didn't answer, but her eyes shimmered, betraying her doubt. Sophia drew back, smoothing her hair, her smile sharp as a blade. "Be careful, Lisa. Don't become a pawn in a game Marcus always wins." The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Lisa alone in the vast room. The ticking of the clock suddenly rang painfully loud. She clutched her chest, her heart racing. The Marcus who had been tender and sincere yesterday clashed violently with Sophia's venomous words. Inside her, trust began to tremble. Ever since Sophia's return, Lisa had not been herself. The mornings that once rang with laughter were now silent. She still prepared the meals, still brought tea into Marcus's study, but the playful jokes, the innocent glances, gone. Her smile was now paper-thin, like a curtain hiding the storm behind her eyes. Marcus noticed the change quickly. Whenever he tried to start a conversation, Lisa only nodded, replying in short, clipped sentences. One afternoon he ventured, "This evening, let's go to the glass garden. I want to hear you sing that song again." Lisa only shook her head. "I have kitchen work." "You should go alone." The lightness of her reply left a crushing weight inside Marcus. He didn't understand why the wall between them, once torn down, had risen again, stronger than ever. Meanwhile, Sophia hadn't stopped. Like a skilled actress, she knew exactly when to appear to plant more doubt. Sometimes she left her familiar perfume lingering in the hallways. Sometimes she sent flowers to the mansion with a card signed only with initials. One afternoon, while Lisa was arranging the living room, Sophia swept in, dressed in another expensive gown, her heels striking rhythmically against the floor. "Oh, you're here too," Sophia said sweetly, though her eyes were sharp as blades. "I just saw Marcus outside in the garden. He was remembering our first gala in Milan. He said, no one had ever made him feel as confident as I did." Lisa tried not to react, but her heart twisted in response. She knew Sophia was doing it on purpose, yet the words stung like acid dripping onto an unhealed wound. Sophia smiled, tilting her head. "Don't misunderstand, Lisa. I'm not trying to compete, but Marcus is a man you can't forget. Believe me, part of his heart still belongs to me." Then she turned and walked out, leaving the thick cloud of her perfume behind, as if marking her presence in a way that couldn't be erased. That evening, Marcus returned late. Lisa had prepared dinner but didn't wait. She simply left his portion in the warming oven. When he walked in, she greeted him with only a faint smile before quietly leaving the room. Marcus watched her go, his chest tightening. He wanted to rush after her, to take her hand and demand the truth, but he didn't even know where to begin. "Are you slipping away from me, Lisa?" The fateful day arrived on a drizzling afternoon. Marcus was in the main hall, just back from a meeting, loosening his tie when Sophia suddenly appeared. "Marcus!" she called, her voice urgent. Before he could react, she rushed forward and threw her arms around him. "I'm sorry," Sophia whispered, her eyes shimmering with tears. "I can't lose you." Marcus froze, his whole body stiff. He was about to push her away when, out of the corner of his eye, he saw Lisa standing at the end of the hallway. She stopped dead, her face pale. The sight before her stabbed straight through her heart. Sophia in Marcus's arms, her face buried against his chest, and Marcus, still, unmoving, as if accepting it. In that instant, every poisonous word Sophia had planted surged back. "He once spoiled me like a princess, and when he grew bored, he staged an accident to cast me aside. You think you're any different?" Lisa's chest constricted, her breath caught. She staggered back a step, her hand gripping the hem of her dress to stop it from trembling. "Lisa!" Marcus finally saw her, his voice breaking. But she turned away, walking quickly out of sight without a word. Rain poured harder outside. Lisa ran across the stone courtyard, her heels striking against the wet ground. Raindrops mingled with her tears, salty and bitter. Only one thought echoed in her mind. I was wrong. Sophia was right. Marcus hasn't changed. To him, love is just a game, and when he's done, he'll always find a way to leave. She didn't know how long she ran. She only knew the pain in her chest clenched tighter with every breath. All the trust she had so bravely given Marcus shattered like glass on stone. To stay meant becoming the fool again. Lisa would not allow it. Never again. When the heavy doors of the mansion slammed shut behind her, Marcus stood frozen in the hall. Sophia still clung to his arm, but his eyes were fixed only on the place where Lisa had vanished. In those eyes, the light had gone out, leaving only darkness. Darkness of a man realizing he might have just lost the most precious thing in his life. Thank you for being part of Soul Stories. If you're listening on another channel, come back to the official home so you can continue our love journeys together with the Soul Stories family. Marcus had never known such despair. The echo of the door slamming behind Lisa rang in his head like a final judgment. His heart sank like lead into a dark abyss. He wanted to chase after her instantly, but the pounding rain outside and the invisible wall Lisa had just built chained his legs to the floor. "Lisa!" he shouted, his voice raw and broken. But her figure had already vanished into the storm, leaving only silence to fill the vast hall. Sophia still stood there, her eyes gleaming with what looked like triumph. But Marcus no longer cared. He shoved her arm away and said coldly, "Leave, Sophia." For good. That night, Marcus wandered across New York searching for Lisa. He went to the small cafes she once said she liked, places where she would sit and listen to music. He even searched the train station, where she had once confessed to crying alone when she first came to the city. Every place was empty. Desperate, he turned to Lucas. Inside the medical library, Lucas looked up, his eyes sharp with anger when he saw Marcus. "What are you doing here? You made my sister cry until she collapsed in exhaustion. What's left to say?" Marcus didn't dodge. He sat across from him, his voice trembling but firm. "You have every right to hate me, but I need to tell you the truth. Lisa is the woman I love. Sophia never loved me, and I have no feelings left for her. I was weak and cowardly, hiding behind a lie out of fear. But I'm done running." Lucas stayed silent, his eyes still cold. Marcus drew a long breath, then spoke words he had never imagined himself saying. "If I had to give up all my reputation, my company, my wealth, just so Lisa could believe my love is real, I would. Because only after meeting her did I finally learn what it means to live." His voice cracked, his eyes red with emotion. "Please, help me find your sister." Lucas stared into him. At first, there was only anger in his gaze, but slowly the faintest flicker of doubt appeared. For the first time, he saw Marcus Whitmore stripped of arrogance and power. Only a man, desperate for love. 2 days later, to everyone's shock, Marcus called a press conference. Dozens of reporters swarmed, camera flashes exploding in rapid bursts. The world wondered, why was the tech prince suddenly reappearing after weeks of silence? Marcus stepped to the podium, gripping the microphone. His gaze swept the crowd before fixing on the cameras, knowing Lisa would be watching. By now you all know, he began, his deep voice steady, about the accident and the reports that I was paralyzed. That was a mistake, a lie I created myself. I won't make excuses. I only want to say that within that lie, I discovered the greatest truth of my life. He paused, drawing in a breath. Sophia Blake was once my girlfriend, but she was never my love. Sophia was the greatest mistake of my life. The only woman I want to walk beside until the end is Lisa Hayes. The room erupted. Cameras clicked furiously. Reporters shouted questions over one another. But Marcus stood his ground, unwavering. Lisa is not a celebrity, not a face on magazine covers. She's just a simple woman who lived invisibly in my world. Yet she showed me what family is, what warmth means, what true love feels like. Without Lisa, I am nothing more than an empty shell with the title Billionaire. His voice wavered, but his eyes shone bright. If you're hearing me, Lisa, please believe me. I don't need fame. I don't need anyone's admiration. I only need you. The press conference shook the world. The media called it the tech prince's greatest confession of love. Lucas watched the entire thing unfold. When Marcus left the stage, their eyes met. This time, Lucas's gaze no longer held pure hatred. There was silence there, mixed with a hint of belief. He stepped forward and said quietly, "If what you said today is true, then spend the rest of your life proving it to my sister." Marcus nodded as if handed a lifeline. That night, Lisa scrolled through the news on her old phone. When she saw Marcus on screen, his eyes unwavering as he declared before the world, "Lisa Hayes is the only woman I want to walk beside for the rest of my life." Her heart trembled. Tears welled up, but they were no longer from pain. They were tears of something deeper, of being moved, of hope. She knew then. Marcus had truly changed. Sophia was nothing but a shadow of the past, with no place left in his heart. Lisa whispered softly, as if sending her words through the screen. "Marcus, maybe this time, I'll believe you." That winter, the garden behind the mansion was blanketed with a thin layer of snow, white and pure as if nature itself had laid down a tablecloth. The bare trees swayed in the icy breeze, yet within the chill, a warm light was beginning to bloom. Marcus had prepared the dinner himself. Not fine wine or lavish courses crafted by a famous chef, just steaming chicken soup, a few slices of golden toast, and a dessert clumsily made from Lisa's recipe. On the small round wooden table, he placed candles in a circle, their glow softening his tense, determined features. Lisa stepped onto the porch, her old wool scarf still wrapped around her shoulders. When her eyes caught the scene, she froze. "Marcus, all of this?" He moved closer, his heart pounding. For the first time in his life, Marcus Whitmore, the cold billionaire who once made others bow their heads, was trembling so hard he could barely speak. He took Lisa's hand and placed a small box in her palm. "Lisa," his voice was low but steady, "I once had everything, money, fame, the spotlight, but none of it meant anything until I had you. You turned this house into a home, and this heart into something capable of love again. Please, marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Her hands shook as she opened the box. Inside was not the massive diamond Sophia once demanded, but a slender platinum band set with a single stone that gleamed like a drop of morning dew. Simple, elegant, just like his love for her. Tears brimmed in Lisa's eyes, but laughter bubbled through her sobs. "Marcus, you're such a fool. I forgave you long ago." And of course, yes. Her yes rang out into the frosty night like a springtime song. Marcus pulled her into his arms, his shoulders trembling, not with fear, but with the rush of joy. 1 year later, in the same winter garden where the proposal had taken place, a wedding unfolded, small, quiet, warm. No reporters, no flashing cameras, no whispers from strangers. Only those who mattered most. Henry, his childhood friend, smiling softly, and Lucas, now a medical resident, his eyes shining as he watched his sister in her simple white dress. Lisa walked down the aisle strewn with flower petals, her face glowing not from jewelry or grandeur, but from certainty in her heart. Marcus waited at the end of the path, his eyes never leaving hers. When they spoke their vows, Marcus felt as though his soul had been washed clean. Once he had hidden behind a mask of arrogance, consumed by lies and ambition. But now all that remained was the present. The moment Lisa held his hand and whispered, "We are a family." 2 years later, the house, once so silent you could hear every tick of the clock, now echoed with the laughter of a child. Lisa had given birth to a baby girl. They named her Grace, blessing, a reminder that love and happiness were gifts no amount of wealth could buy. Marcus held his daughter for the first time, tears blurring his vision. "I used to think my greatest achievement was Whitmore Technologies," he whispered to Lisa, "but now I know. It's you and our child." Lisa, leaning back in her chair, smiled gently, her hand brushing his arm. "We went through loss, through mistakes, and that's why we can understand just how precious happiness is today." The mansion's walls, once lined with lifeless art, were now decorated with simple photo frames. Lisa laughing while baking, Lucas holding baby Grace, Marcus in rolled-up sleeves assembling a stroller. Each ordinary moment was a jewel he never knew he needed. Every weekend afternoon, Marcus and Lisa took Grace to Central Park. Years ago, it had been the place of heartbreak and misunderstanding. Now it was the setting of joy. They sat together on an old wooden bench, hand in hand, watching their daughter run across the grass. Marcus turned to Lisa. Her face glowed in the twilight, her hair catching the breeze. He whispered, "I once had supercars, diamonds, the brightest lights. But real happiness is just sitting here with you and our child, listening to laughter." Lisa rested her head on his shoulder. "Happiness never needed much, Marcus. Just two hearts brave enough to trust and stay." As the sunset bathed the park in gold, the sound of a child's laughter mingled with the rhythm of two hearts beating as one. The mansion, once cold and hollow, now overflowed with warmth. And Marcus knew at last. He had found what all the wealth in the world could never give him: a home, a true love, a real family.